Thank you, Ralph. 3 weeks ago, Gordon asked me to give this speech today. He knew that I'm a Vietnam War veteran, and in the 30 years since that war ended, no one has spoken here at this occasion about the Vietnam War. Now for me, taking on a speech like this is pretty daunting. But taking on Vietnam has reopened old files of memories that have been locked away for decades. It dawned on me that for anyone under the age of 40, that this is history, not the actual experience that has divided this nation and the memories of us who are older. After all, this is the war that brought to our language such terms as body count, search and destroy, and quagmire. For these past 30 years, far wiser voices have preceded mine today, attempting to make sense of why we fought this war without much clarity. So I'd like to make it clear from the beginning that I'm going to talk today about one day I spent there, the worst day of my life, and that I was just one of over 3 million who served in Vietnam. It is my hope that my story will focus our thoughts on what this day is all about and what it meant to me. I'll bet that many of you are wondering why I'm speaking today, and the fact that I served in Vietnam may be news to you. I've spoken to 6 of the 47 men that are listed on the monument behind me, who have spent their whole lives here in Cornwall, as well as several transplants like myself who served in Vietnam. We agree that we're anonymous veterans. Unlike our parents who fought and won World War II, who changed the course of history, that Tom Brokaw is justifiably defined as the greatest generation. I think our lives were best summed up from a quote from the film Platoon. But be that as it may, those of us who did make it have an obligation to build again, to teach others what we know, and to try with what's left in our lives to find goodness and meaning to this life. It did not mark a high point in our lives, just another chapter, one we more than likely want to forget. We became the guy who runs the lumber yard, who makes your shaker furniture, the guy you call when you have a rabid raccoon rampaging your basement, the guy you entrust with your town's money, or that smiling face greeting you at the dump. Oh, come on, Fred, smile something. Or some of the guys who show up at your house in the middle of the night to put out your chimney fire. Whoever it was said that it was unending hours of absolute boredom, punctuated by moments of sheer terror, described my tour in Vietnam. I entered the Army as a conscientious objector who was willing to serve, which meant that I never carried a gun. So they made me a medic, and they assigned me to the guys with all the guns, the infantry, more specifically the 1st Cavalry Division. Instead of horses, we rode in helicopters. This is the unit that was featured in the film Apocalypse Now, though we didn't go surfing or play Wagner. It was the summer of 1970, the Vietnamization of the war, where we were attempting to turn over operations to the Vietnamese. The general attitude we had was that no one wanted to be the last one to die. So instead of going on search and destroy missions, we went on search and avoid ones. I was assigned to be Doc, the 1st platoon of Alpha Company. We were commonly referred to as grunts. 15 to 20 guys from all across America. We would go on jungle patrol for 3 weeks at a time, get back for a week at the landing zone, and then back out to the bush again, until your year tour of duty was over. Under these 24/7, 365-day-a-year conditions, you really get to know each other. And you do become a band of brothers. Some months later, I was promoted to be senior medic of Alpha Company, which meant that I traveled with the command post, the captain, his radio operators, and our artillery lieutenant. Our captain was Johnny Newton Ward, Jr. of Sarasota, Florida. He was a man of 27 years, commanding a company of 18 to 20-year-old boys. He was intelligent, caring, and most importantly, ever mindful of the safety of Alpha Company. On January 16, 1971, while we were engaged in a firefight, we were accidentally hit by our own artillery, killing 4 and wounding 11. Curiously, the same total of casualties at Kent State University just the year before. Captain Ward was killed, along with 3 others that included the medic from the 3rd Platoon who we were traveling with. It was clearly the worst day of my life. When you get through a day like that, it provides you with a lifetime standard to measure the true meaning of, I'm having a bad day. It made the rest of my life more of a downhill journey after surviving that day. 3 days later, we met up with my old buddies from the 1st Platoon. They knew that Captain Ward was dead, along with the medic, and they assumed that it must be me. I relive that reunion with my band of brothers every Memorial Day. I had come back from the dead in their eyes, while I was still wearing the blood of our captain with my fatigues. Their unqualified elation at seeing me alive lifted me out of the depths of depression, of wondering why I could not save my 4 friends, and why it was them and not me. So, I stand in front of you all this Memorial Day as someone who has returned from the dead, speaking for those we memorialize, to remind you what is so obvious. It is good to be alive. And even better when you take the time to remind each other. A few years ago, I tried to get in touch with Captain Ward's survivors to pass on some pictures I had of him, only to find that there were none. I did get to speak to several of his friends and classmates, including his wife's best friend, who informed me that 10 years following his death, Joy Ward took her own life. She told me that Joy had not remarried and was never the same after her Johnny's death. So, I would like to dedicate my words today to my captain, Johnny Ward Jr., and his wife, Joy. His name joins the 58,202 names on the Vietnam Memorial Wall. But where do we put Joy's name and the countless others who suffer along with those we memorialize today? It is difficult to make sense of these events that happened to me, my fellow veterans, our country, and the nation of Vietnam. Far greater minds than mine have yet to answer the question, why? I have come up with some answers for me. This experience allowed me in 1987, after moving to Cornwall, on the invitation of Jim Whiteside, to join the volunteer fire department and the ambulance squad, and I found a new band of brothers and sisters. It has allowed me the privilege to help serve this wonderful town of Cornwall. For the past 18 years, a town that has embraced me and my family in a similar fashion that the 1st Platoon did of Alpha Company did on that January day 34 years ago. It has allowed me to fulfill my most important role in life as father to my daughter Megan, who is here today, and her twin brother Weston. It is most fitting that I give this speech this year because Meg and Wes are the exact same age I was the day that Captain Ward was killed. I am very grateful that they do not have to face what I did. And I would be even more grateful if our leadership would learn from these experiences before sending anyone else to give their last full measure for our country. And finally, it has allowed me to put the worst day of my life back in that file and replace it with today, one of the best, where I got to drive the new ambulance in the parade, tell you a story and share it with you, my friends and neighbors, and now run the cakewalk, where for only 5 tickets you too can win a cake. I hope to see you all there. Thank you very much.
Cadwell. That's where the moose is. Cadwell's. It's called Cadwell.
I'm sorry, but Dave says he doesn't have an encore, so we have to go on.